We're so excited to have Nicole Conway here tonight. It's our book club night, and we've chosen to read Scales, book 1 in the Spirits of Chaos series. So we hope some of you have had a chance to read this epic superhero dragon shifter adventure that Kirkus calls a bright tsunami of hormones and heroism, which I feel like we can all agree is the best recommendation of all time.
I've never heard them use phrases like that before. And
I know. Many really special.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're super excited to dig in. But first, I wanted to give a brief introduction of Nicole Conway, and then we'll ask her to share a little bit about herself. So she's the author of, okay, Nicole, I tried to count. Is it 14 books? Is Wings your 14th?
I think it's 12.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Well, because there's some that aren't out yet, but are coming out in the next couple of months. So
okay,
it's a busy fall.
Well, 12 is a perfect number for Wings. So there's Wings. So she's the author of 12 books, and she's a very talented designer. For those of you who don't know, Nicole is the one who's responsible for all the lettering. So we had a cover designer do the images, and then Nicole went in and did all of this gorgeous gold lettering. So I don't know how many of you know that and how many authors are cool enough to do their own typography, but we were super impressed with her abilities there. So she designs, she rock climbs, she writes like a fiend. I've never seen people put books out as often as she does. She homeschools. She's a military wife and mom. She tames snakes, as I'm sure she'll tell you about. She's the mother of dragons. So we're super excited to have Nicole. She's incredibly talented and productive and wonderful and a lot of fun to listen to. So Nicole, welcome tonight.
Thank you.
Would love to start with you telling a little bit about yourself, where you are right now, where you live, maybe how you're surviving 2020, maybe a little bit about your little friend there.
Sure. So we're a military family. My husband is an A-10 pilot. And we've been together 10 years, but we've moved 6 times. And number 7 is coming up this spring. Pilots move a lot. We've lived all over the world, but I actually kind of like that part of it. I like getting to go live different places, but it's kind of with the pilot gig, it's kind of like once you've seen them all, you're kind of like, okay, there's nowhere else we can go, but hopefully there'll be somewhere new we can go soon. But so I do like to travel, and we've traveled quite a bit, and I have one son that I'm homeschooling. Actually, we were actually considering homeschool before everything happened this year, and the schools are shifted to virtual, just because we knew we wouldn't likely be moving in the middle of his school year. Because right now we're in Tucson, Arizona, and they go to school year round. So we would have been pulling him out, in the middle of his year. And so we were thinking about homeschooling just to make that transition a little easier on him, especially since we didn't know where we would go. They usually don't tell us until about 6 months out. So, but I've been a geek since I was as long as I can remember. I've liked all kinds of animals since I was a kid too, and this is Phevos. I used to have 2 ball pythons, but I sold one to this little girl down the street who really, really wanted a snake. And so I gave her one of them. But this is Phevos. He's my male ball python. He's a really sweet boy. I've had him since he was about 2 months old. His coloration, they call it a morph, is called a mystic potion. So he has this really cool like pattern, and in certain light he looks purple, and then this kind of shows up green. It looks like little question marks. I should have named him Riddler. I really missed opportunity, but I thought I would show him off because I do have a love for scales and dragons and all things fantasy. When I say nerd, and geek, I don't use that lightly. I don't know if you can see all of the Dragon Age paraphernalia and all that like going on in the back. Unfortunately, most of it's on this side of my office so that I could gaze at it while I'm working, but Oh, here we go. Here's the wall of shame over here. You can see the wall of shame. Oh yeah. All of my action figures, comic books, and everything. A lot of these from when I was a kid. So yeah, I play D&D. I play Warhammer. I play Magic the Gathering, and occasionally write books.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. Everybody's saying how much they love your snake. So pretty. Shannon, I used to catch them all the time when I lived in Colorado. Ashley McCartney calls it a good lap dragon.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so I think that's all so far. We're super excited you guys are here. And Nicole, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about scales?
So I got the idea for scales while we were living in Korea. We lived in Korea for 2 years, and we lived off base in a Korean apartment, and we loved it. It was a great experience, but the winters are very long and very cold, and you spend a lot of time inside where it's warm. And so I was desperately trying to entertain my son. And I like the show Miraculous Ladybug. I don't know if anybody else out there likes Miraculous Ladybug, but I loved that show. And I just got this weird idea. I was like, it would be really fun to write a superhero story with like the school drama, but make it something different that I haven't seen before, which is usually how my ideas begin. Let's take something normal and make it weird. And because we were there with the military, I decided, you know what, I'm going to make the main character of this a military kid, because I've never seen it portrayed accurately in kids' books before. And I wanted to show, I guess, what military brats are, because I don't know, maybe it's my generation, which makes me feel so old to say that, but that where being called a military brat was a bad thing. It had a bad connotation with it. And I wanted to let's show what it's really like for military kids, and let's show how their personalities evolve and how their lives differ from normal people and normal kids who are, go to the same school for their whole lives. And then you have Koji, who's the main character, and everything about him is different. He's even his name is, he has a Japanese name because his mother was from Japan. His dad, and this happens all the time, they get stationed in a different country, they fall in love, and they get married. And that's what happened to Koji's dad. He met a nice lady while he was stationed in Japan. They got married. And then you have sweet little Koji, who is this comic loving, he's a really friendly, nice guy. And then he finds a bracelet that, I won't, no spoilers, but he ends up being a superhero and figuring out that the way he thought being a superhero would go, the way he's always seen it in comics and the stories that he loves, it's not actually that way in real life. So that was kind of and then of course there's lots of epic battles and fights, and I had to pull in some stuff from my favorite movie of all time, which was Pacific Rim. I did a shameless plug for it, and because I just love giant monsters, so I was like, we're gonna do giant monsters because I love that movie.
Very cool. As a follow-up, quickly, Darby wants to know if you travel with your snake, if he goes with you.
So casually, like for vacations, no. He actually just likes to sleep a lot, so he stays in his cage, and he only needs food every couple of weeks, and then just water. And they actually prefer to just be left alone. He tolerates handling really well because he's used to it, but they actually don't really, it kind of stresses him out to be handled a whole lot. And but when we move, I will take him unless we go overseas. different countries have different rules about moving reptiles and exotic animals to different countries. Even getting normal cats and dogs overseas is complicated and can result in having them quarantined, regardless. So we actually, when we lived in Korea, we didn't take our dog. We had some absolutely wonderful family friends that my husband had known since high school that fostered our dog at the time. Because not only is it 24 hours in the belly of an airplane with no food or water except what you can hopefully cram in that kennel with them, it's not heated or cooled down there. It's loud, it's scary, and a lot of it's terrifying for him. So we just did not do it to her.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. How many animals do you have, Nicole?
I have 2 dogs, Joey and Phoebe, like on Friends.
Oh.
And I have of course, I have Phevos. And then I have a cat named Neville, who is losing, I don't know if you can hear him, he's losing his mind wanting in here. And then we have a goldfish. My son wanted a goldfish, and it was a great fiasco trying to get that gold. That goldfish is so much more work than this snake. It's ridiculous. And his name is Gold Bob. That's what he named him. So Gold Bob. That's
very cool. So you have a whole zoo, is what you're saying.
I do. There's not many pets my son could ask me for that I would be like, no, that's not a good idea.
We'll have to think of one, a llama or...
I don't really care for hamsters just because I've had so many mean ones. And they are a lot of work too.
Yeah, and they smell bad. Okay, so thank you. Sorry to go back to the snake after coming into Scales. One question, Ashley wants to know what character in Scales holds more of you? Ooh,
that's a tough one because now I'm old, and so I kind of relate to the parents a little bit. I think as far as the cast of main characters, I relate a lot with Koji. I was a military kid too, and while I did get to stay in one place, I always sort of felt that outcast vibe. Back in my day, it wasn't the nerdy stuff, the comic stuff it wasn't a social niche. It was like, you were a dork if you liked that stuff. Fortunately, I was homeschooled through 6th grade, so I didn't really care. I was weird and proud, I guess. I was like, whatever, don't care. So I liked what I liked, and eventually I just found other friends that liked that stuff too. Now, thankfully, that seems to have changed a bit. It's a little bit more mainstream to like comics and cosplay and things like that. So I guess Koji would probably still be the one I feel for the most, though, because he sort of feels like that outcast and weird, and his parents don't really get his interest in art and all of that. And that's a hard place to be in when that's the only thing you've ever been good at. So I'm not a math person, so I can relate to him from that standpoint.
I think you've done a really good job throughout the book of kind of balancing his quirkiness with him being really good at some things and being confident in those things. So he's got the insecurities of a teen, but he knows what he's good at and he knows what he likes, and I like that about him. Kind of going into that, one really interesting thing about this series is that Scales starts as kind of an upper middle grade younger YA, and then Wings kind of transitions into a little bit more YA. So why is that important for Koji's story?
I think it's his journey, really. He's in that phase in high school where you start changing and you start becoming the person that you're going to be as an adult, and a lot of the things that he's dealing with, and that's part of the reason why Wings is such a hard book for him, are adult problems that he's determined to handle on his own. And figures out a little too late that maybe he can't handle all of this on his own, and he kind of has to get over that sense of pride and ask for help. And that's a hard thing to do when you want to be independent and when you want to prove yourself, especially to your parents. It's hard to admit when you've gotten in over your head and you need help.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of going along with that, Ashley asks a great question. She said, did you have a hard time not making the book depressing over the losses and chaos in his life?
Yes, and fortunately, I'm very blessed that my husband reads my books before and will tell me if I'm getting too angsty. Now, he did get really mad at me for one scene. He literally threw it down and was like, you can't do this. And I'm like, I have to do this. It's, but because he claims he doesn't like angsty books, but he pretty much exclusively reads Tom Clancy or YA. So he has a very eclectic taste, which is kind of my fault. But yeah, that's, there was a balance there, especially with all the, we were joking about how this book is like all the terrible things that happened to Koji in this one book. It's like, whew, that's a lot. But it was a balance we had to strike. And that was why having that supporting cast of characters of his friends, especially Drake, having them there to kind of keep him going and lift him up, like that. Even Agent Kirkland kind of becomes that stabilizing force for him several times. It's important. And I think in real life, that's what gets us through these really hard times, is having those important key people in your life that are, that have your back and can, and, even when it's terrible, they can help you find the silver lining or just make you laugh a little.
Yeah. I love that. I was telling Nicole earlier today that I think she does such a great job balancing kind of the fantasy and the magic with actual real life problems. And Wings has something that especially spoke to me, but she has these really well-rounded characters. I'm talking to them, not you, Nicole, because you already know this, but she has these really well-rounded characters that kind of, they have the Harry Potter, not like Harry Potter, but I feel like she does a good job with that mix of real life problems and discovering the magic of things. And that's one of the things that I think this book does so well and why it connects with readers so well. So I have to know, Nicole, why are you so into the dragons? You have 3 different dragon series? Is that, or do you have more than that?
4.
So, and you've written other types of books, but you're really all in on the dragons. Why is that? What is it about them that's so interesting to you?
Well, so it all started when I was about in 2nd grade, I guess, and I was being homeschooled, and one of the biggest events of my week was library day. Wednesday was library day. We would go to the library and Mom would let me pick out, I was a big reader, she would let me pick out books to read. And there was a book, I actually have it on my shelf down there somewhere, called Jeremy Thatcher Dragon Hatcher by Bruce Colville, and it was my favorite book, and I checked it out every week until the librarian was finally like, just keep it, it's never here anyway. And I don't know, that was the first book I call it a gateway book. Every kid, I think, has to find that gateway book that just makes you fall in love with stories and fall in love with storytelling. And that was that book for me. And it's about a little boy who buys a dragon egg from a magic shop and hatches it and then tries to hide it in his room as it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's trying to eat his hamster and all of this stuff. And like one of the coolest moments in my career was when I actually, somebody asked me about it on Twitter, and I, tweeted it. And I don't think I even tagged him in it, but Bruce Colville tweeted me back and was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, oh, you have no idea what you started, man. So it's actually, the last series in my Dragon Rider series, I actually gave him kind of a shout out, and I haven't told anyone this yet. But the main character's name is Thatcher, and it's kind of a last salute to Bruce for for making me fall in love with fantasy. Of course, then Dragonheart came out, and I don't know a kid in the 90s who didn't see that movie and were like, because I mean, Sean Connery was a dragon and it was awesome.
That's amazing. That's fun. So I have to ask, if Scales were made into a movie, who would you have play Koji?
Oh, you know, I've thought about this. I've been asked, and I think it's one of those things where I would want someone who was either had never been in anything big before or was new. I would want an unknown. I just, because I don't know, I feel like that role would be, there's a way, and I love the way Josh narrates in the audiobooks, because there's a way that he acts and he talks and and I haven't seen anybody do that. So I think it would have to be somebody new or unknown.
Okay. That's a good answer. Interesting.
But I would want a real teenager and not a 25-year-old. I hate that.
100%. Hannah asks, are there other favorite dragon books that you recommend to people that you love?
Oh yeah. So I've actually never read Aragon, so I can't recommend that one, but everybody seems to like it. Well, so that started to get popular, like it really caught when the last few books came out. And I was in the middle of writing my Dragon Rider series, and I didn't want to cross-contaminate, and so I kind of just missed that whole thing. Yeah. I need to go back and read it, but I got one more Dragon Rider series before I can, and I'm like, okay, then we're safe. So there's a series, I actually picked up the first one by accident at Walmart because it had a dragon on the cover, and I was like 15 and anything with dragons, I was like, I want that. And it was called Dragon Weather by Lawrence Watt Evans. And it is an adult book, but it's not like super, I mean, there's way worse stuff now in YA. So I'm like, it would probably be a nice YA book now, because he is a teen through some of it. I really liked Dragon Weather. It's like the Count of Monte Cristo in a fantasy world. It's like a revenge story. It's great. And dragons, of course. And elves, all the things I like. Of course, anything Tolkien wrote. I really like the Silmarillion. I really like I think the Two Towers was probably my favorite Lord of the Rings book. I haven't read those in a while. I read them a bunch when I was in high school and middle school. But I haven't read those. Now, when it just comes to straight fantasy, I'm a huge Dark Elf trilogy fan. I've read those many, many times. I love Drizzt. And I'm looking at my shelf because the ones with the really battered spines are the ones I've read a million times. That's probably the only dragon. I mean, I like Festus and Percy Jackson until they killed him off. That hurt. I have not read or watched Game of Thrones. Again, one, cross-contamination, and two, when I found out one of the dragons was named Drogon, I was like, oh, I just hurt me a little bit. I'm like, you had a chance to make such a cool, and that's what you named it. Okay. And there's just a lot of, I'm not big on the super graphicness of that. I guess I'm still a kid at heart, and I tend to skim or skip that entirely, and that would have been like a lot of the books. So it just never really caught with me. But that's pretty much it. Are you ready to go out? You're getting so still now.
Very thorough answer. Thank you. Okay, shifting a little bit from Scales to your writing process. Can you tell us a little bit about that? We've already established that you write a ton. So what does that look like for you?
Well, in the current world state, chaos. On a good day, I kind of have to balance my schedule. I do, and make the most of the time. I'm a big procrastinator, believe it or not, but if I'm able to sit and concentrate, I type. I think the last time I did a typing test, I was at 90 words per minute. I haven't done one in a while. I think that was like last year, but I type really fast. And I tend to write out the blocks of dialogue actually on my phone. Like if it conversations will just hit me and I'll write it out. And then if I end up using it later, then it's like, oh, I can use that. So it's kind of like being a little bit schizophrenic, I guess. A little bit. But I'm not a big, I will do a loose plot with just like hit the high points. And then I like to just kind of let the story flow and let the characters kind of do what they're going to do and react naturally to things. To me, it makes it feel a little bit more organic than trying to force it. I know some people are very rigorously plotters, and to me, that just takes all the fun. For me, in my nuts brain, it takes all the fun out of it. I like being able to spontaneously do things like, you know, have Koji trip and fall down the stairs or get into a fight with somebody in the bathroom. Like none of that was scripted. So it just sort of happened. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. But that's pretty much, I will set a timer. This is how I have to get myself to focus, because I'm really bad about getting distracted, scrolling through Pinterest and all of that. So I will set a timer for an hour, and I will, you know, that's it. Like I'll turn on I have super long playlists, writing playlists, and I'll turn on a playlist and I'll just go for as long as I have now. It used to be an hour block of time, but now it's like, I've got 20 minutes, and you'll be surprised what you can get done in 20 minutes when you set a timer for yourself like that. And it's the only way to stay disciplined.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's awesome. Do any of you have questions for, I know we had a couple of little aspiring writers who were hoping to be on. We had some that love your book and wanted to be writers. So if you guys have questions about that, just put them in the comments and we'll ask them. I would like to know when you first, because you were homeschooled, and so you probably had a lot more creative freedom than, you know, public schools, and you also read a lot. So when did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
It was, I don't really know. It was really young, because I finished my first book in 6th grade, and it's horrible. I still have it. It's down there. But I remember, and my mom loves to tell this story because she's quite proud of the nerd that I have grown up to be as far as writing and stuff, because it's not her thing. She's a math teacher, and so it's a big accomplishment that she fostered that. But she does like to read. So there used to be a book festival that would happen at one of the schools near us, and anybody could go. And it was like a huge book fair, and they would have local authors come, and they would be teaching workshops all day. And then it was really fun, and it was more geared towards middle school kids. I remember going, and at the end they had like a big assembly, and we're all sitting on the floor in the gym, and the lady who I guess was the librarian at the school was asking us, who would you like for us to try to get to come speak next year? And, you know, everybody's raising. I raised my hand, and my mom said when she saw my hand go up, her stomach just dropped, because she has no idea what I'm gonna say, because I got called on, and I said C.S. Lewis. Who's been dead for a long time.
That would be interesting.
I think I was like in 1st grade. And so anyway, I know then at that point, I already knew that I wanted to be a writer. And I just, I don't know, I never really gave up on that. Fortunately, and girls, this is super important. I married somebody who really supported that, and actually pushed me to do it, and supports me now, and reads it, and reads the stuff that I write, and gets really angry about certain parts. He's still mad about it too.
He's like your first audience reaction.
He is. He's a tough critic too. He'll tell me when things are bad. And I mean, he read the Wings and Scales because he's a pilot, and I wanted to make sure I got all the military stuff as right as possible. And but he'll also tell me if things don't mesh right, or if he doesn't like a character. By the way, he's been Team Claire from the beginning. He hasn't given up on that. So
that's amazing. Well, I'm Team Claire too, for the record. That's awesome. What is it about? I think it's so interesting that you had an interest in dragons early on, and that you pull from military, which came later on in your life. It seems like a very natural fit. Was that conscious, or did it just kind of come together?
I guess a little bit of both. I knew it was going to be a challenge because there's a lot. You see military stuff in books a lot, but not until you've lived it. You can't really point at it and say, oh, that's not right, that's incorrect, that would never happen. But it's kind of like the worst person to go see a movie with anything military in it is a military member.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be, because I was writing a character that was a military kid, and I wanted to make sure I did it right and did it respectfully and did it, honestly, good and the bad. So it was a little bit of both. And fortunately had lots of support in that area, and lots of great subjects to observe, because my son is, of course, he's a military kid, but we've got friends now with kids of all ages, and even just talking to them about some of the stuff that they feel and experience is, it's been interesting. And they got so mad that there were no A10s in the first book. That's my husband flies A10s. So mad. So I made sure that there was going to be one on the cover of book 2. It's there, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
That right there.
Absolutely. And I even had to my husband recorded himself saying the gun sound to make sure. And he did it. Josh, you did it perfect. You got a thumbs up from all the pilots. You did it perfectly. Good job. I sent him an email. I don't know if he got it, but I was like, you did so good.
Awesome. Josh is the narrator for both of her books so far, and Nicole loves him. And I am interested for you to explain to people why you're so connected to the way he reads it.
So he has this energy when he narrates, and he doesn't just, give them a voice. He gives them a personality, and he can bring that through. The first time I heard him read for Koji, I was blown away, because it didn't sound like someone reading a book. It sounded actually like someone telling a story, because Koji had all these, the way he said things, the way, and it was just perfect. And I'd never heard I listened to a lot of audiobooks. I'd never heard anyone do that before. So he really goes the extra mile to put that into the books, and I really appreciate it. And I'm already like, I've already listened to book 2, and now I'm like, I need book 3, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to finish writing that. Should probably write
That's on
that.
me.
Yeah. Dang. Irony.
Alicia asks, how long did it take you to get published?
So my road to publication story is a little weird. I self-published in 2014 my first book, Fledgling, and that was back when you didn't self-publish, because it was still like, your book's not good enough to be trad, so you must have self-published it. But I had a lot of friends that helped me read it and get it pretty clean. I had done graphic art, so I did my own cover, and I just slapped it up on Kindle for 99 cents and was like, whatever, I wrote a book, because I wanted to be an author, and overnight, it became a bestseller. in 3 months, I sold 30,000 copies.
Wow.
And then I was having publishers and agents approach me to ask, at these people that I had tried to write letters to for years and been shut down, all of a sudden were like, oh, do you have anyone to represent you? Let me tell you, that was a delicious, to quote Andy Bernard, that was a delicious moment. But that was how I got my start. And then it's just kind of kept going from there. And I have a great agent, and we've just been forging on ever since. It's been a journey, you know, you have ups and downs, and I think everybody right now is feeling the stress and feeling the pressure, and things are tough right now, but you know, it all evens out. We'll be all right. And just trying to fill the time now with writing when I can.
Yeah.
But I always, when I get asked, I always have to slap that your results may vary on it, because mine was kind of backward from the way you're supposed to do it. And I don't know how often that happens. It might happen more now that people are self-publishing a lot more than they used to. That negative connotation is kind of, it's going away. And you see a lot more self-published authors doing pretty well for themselves. I think it's a lot to do with social media. There's just more access to editors, to artists, to, you know, marketing. And it's an undertaking, though. I mean, it is a job. So, and it's not an easy job.
And you've kind of gone full circle, right? Because you published the series, and then it was with a publisher, and now you're putting it out there on your own again, right? You kind of got
yeah. And I'm especially proud of this next series that's about to start, the Dragon Rider Heritage, because that's 100% me. I hired the designer that painted it. I did the cover layout. I did the interior layout. I did all the stuff that's in it. You know, and I'm really proud of it. I got the proof of it, which my husband promptly captured and has run off with. But and was like, I can't believe it looks so good. And but yeah, and that was tough. There was a lot of, that was right when COVID started to be a thing, to catch, and that's when I had the rights reversion, and I had to rebrand everything and republish everything, and it was a nightmare. Anybody who's had to work with the copyright department at Amazon can attest that it is so hard and stressful, and there were a lot of sleepless nights in there trying to work all of that out. But we got it worked out. It just took a while. So, and I now know how to speak Amazon bot. I know how to email their service department and get what I need, because I learned to speak bot while I was doing all that.
That is a skill. Okay, just a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. What are you excited about for people to, those who have read Scales? What are you excited about them discovering in Wings?
A couple of things. Well, I'll just have to pick a few things. Yeah. Oh.
Also, sorry, I'm going to add on to that really fast. Ashley wants to know how many new characters we meet in Wings, so I'm going to lump those two together.
Okay, so there are a few. It's less meeting new characters and more getting to know ones that were introduced but you didn't know that well. So Tabitha, you get to know a little bit more about her, and there's some more characters that are like support from the FBI. You get to know a little bit more about this book. Really focused on Koji and Claire, and a little bit on Madeline. I will say the last book is going to focus a lot more on Drake and Damien, and I mean, of course, Koji will still be a big deal in it, but it'll a lot more of that will come into play too. So, but yeah, it's more like we just dig deeper into the characters that are there, and I don't add a whole lot new ones in this one. There's a bad guy, a new villain, of course, but
The most important part.
Oh yeah.
Okay. For those of you listening, would love to know in the comments how many of you are giant dragon fans and how many of you are big Nicole fans, and which came first. So while you're typing that, anything else you want us to know, Nicole? I love that you're so open and willing to share your experience. Anything that you want to tell either readers or writers?
Well, okay. So for writers, I know that, so I actually taught a free writing class this spring. I think it's still open. It's just I recorded a lot of it. But one of the things that that came up a lot there was the people either didn't know how to get started or didn't know how to finish a book. And there's the short answer for getting started was always my biggest suggestion is always start as close to the point of action, the point where everything changes, as you possibly can. I, as somebody who loves fast-paced stories, it's always good to jump in with both feet and take their breath away right away. And as far as getting to the ending, you know, it helps to have a plot or something with your key points you want to hit. And if you need to fill out, you can, but like, just enjoy the ride. And so some people stress so much about their word count and their page count and chapter length and everything. And it's like, just enjoy it. Because if you enjoy writing, people are going to enjoy reading it. And if it's not fun, then, it's a piece of entertainment. If it's not fun, like if it's not a pleasurable, if it does not bring you joy, then what's it all for? So have fun with it and put dragons in it.
Awesome. I love that. That should be a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. Ashley asks, if you could go back and change one thing, what would it be?
Ooh, about my career or about the book?
I'm just going to leave that open for your interpretation.
About my career, I guess, I think I don't know. I've, my husband and I have always tried to kind of have a meeting because his opinion matters so much to me about, like, he's so wise and he is able to keep a cool head in stressful situations. When I am like a volcano when it comes to our anger. And it's funny because we were just talking about this the other day. Like, the way we deal with anger is so different. If I'm mad, I blow up like a volcano. I'm the dragon who burns the village down. He goes Hannibal Lecter, and it's scary. It's like the cold-eyed stare. The madder he is, the quieter his voice is, and the more terrifying it is. And so I go to him a lot, and every time I've made a big career choice, we've always tried to discuss it and like figure it out together. And I feel a lot more confident. I guess from a career standpoint, if I could change something, I think I would just be more confident in myself and be more proactive when, like, do that thing that I don't, because I think a lot of authors let things pass them by because they don't feel legit. They don't feel like they've earned it, that they really are an author. And I still, it's that imposter type thing where you feel like you don't deserve it, or you're not, you're not a real author if you haven't made a list or you haven't done this or that. And that's not true. And I think you sell yourself so short. And so getting that toxic out of my head would have been great younger in the business. And then when it comes to the series with Koji, I don't know that I have any regrets other than I'm sad that I had to wreck his life so much in book 2. It made me cry twice, Josh. Twice I cried while you were narrating it because he puts all the emotion in there, and I'm like, what have I done to Koji? But I know it's gonna be okay. But he killed me with that. Anyway, I don't think I really have any regrets about this series. I wish I had been able to fit one big monster battle into book 2, but it didn't. But book 3 will have more monster battles, but that just didn't work. There were other types of fights that needed to happen, so it's coming, but not yet.
Wow.
But that's just because I love big giant monster fights.
I really don't think anyone will be disappointed with book 2. And I think that your answer about the publishing industry is perfect. I couldn't have said that better at all. Okay, one quickly, when I ask if they're here for the dragons or for Nicole, Mariah says dragons. Alicia says, we love you. Tatya says, we were a dragon fan, then met Nicole, and now it's a tie. So you've got some people who love you.
I actually drew him while I was watching. Do y'all want to see it? It's so bad. I know where it is because I had this giant. And he ended up looking nothing like this in the finish, but for the better. Like I do a bit of drawing, or I used to do a lot more, but yeah, okay. So originally that was what Koji looked like.
Oh, see, that's still amazing. Can you believe she can draw like that too? Ugh, it's annoying that you have so many talents.
I used to draw a lot. In high school, that's what I got in trouble for.
But Nicole, that's the inspiration that the artist used. So it still came in handy.
It did.
Right?
It did.
Okay, so Carrie, who answered that one correctly? Oh, I love that.
Cat Noir.
Does it tell us who he ends up with?
No, that's from Ladybug. It better be who he ends up with.
That's funny. Okay.
I'm not gonna divulge who Koji ends up with. I'm enjoying playing with your feelings at this point.
You're mean, but that's fine. And if you haven't read Scales yet, do it. It's awesome. So good.
And definitely listen to the audiobook because it's amazing.
Yes, I haven't listened to the audiobook yet. I just bought it and I'm super excited to dig into it. But I wish we could all clap and thank Nicole for being here. Do you have any last words you want to share? Final thoughts?
Just thank you so much for supporting me and for coming and listening to me and watching me hold the snake the whole time. And I will see you in the next book.
Yep. Thank you so much. And thanks for bringing your snake. It was so fun. All right. Thank you all for coming. Have a great night.